Have you ever wondered how those massive ships, the ones that look like floating cities, actually get into the water for the first time? It's not as simple as just pushing them in. This moment, called the ship launch, is one of the most spectacular, nerve-wracking, and downright dangerous events in the entire shipbuilding process. Imagine spending years and millions of dollars building a colossal vessel, only for it all to go wrong in a matter of seconds. Today, we're diving deep into the world of ship launching, exploring the incredible engineering, the different methods, and the high-stakes risks involved when a multi-thousand-ton giant finally meets the sea. This is a process where physics, tradition, and a little bit of luck all collide. Before we get to the splash, let's talk about what happens before. A ship isn't built in the water, it's constructed on land, in a special dock called a building berth or a dry dock. For months, or even years, thousands of workers assemble it piece by piece, from the hull plates to the complex engine rooms. The ship rests on a series of wooden blocks and supports, high and dry. But eventually, the day comes when it has to leave the nest. This is where the real drama begins. All that incredible work, all that investment, all hinges on a successful launch. A mistake here could mean catastrophic failure, massive financial loss, or worse. So, how do they do it? There are three main methods for launching a ship, and each has its own unique flair and set of challenges. The first, and arguably the most dramatic, is the longitudinal launch. This is the classic method you might have seen in old black and white films. The ship is built on an inclined slipway, a slope leading directly into the water. It's positioned stern first, meaning the back of the ship faces the water. On launch day, the supports holding the ship in place are removed, one by one, transferring its immense weight onto a cradle. This cradle is greased up literally, with tons of specialized lubricant to slide down the slipway. Then comes the moment of truth. A ceremonial bottle of champagne is smashed against the hull for good luck. And with the final restraints released, gravity takes over. A ship weighing tens of thousands of tons starts to slide, slowly at first, then picking up incredible speed as it barrels down the slope towards the water. The sound is deafening, a roar of grinding metal and groaning wood. As the stern hits the water, the ship's buoyancy starts to lift it, but the forward momentum is still huge. This is a critical point. The ship could tip too far, take on water, or even capsize if the calculations are off. To stop it from crashing into the opposite bank, massive chains and anchors, known as drag chains, are used to act as brakes, slowing the behemoth down until it floats freely. It's pure, raw physics in action, and it's a breathtaking sight. But the longitudinal launch has its limitations. It requires a very long and wide body of water, which isn't always available, especially in crowded shipyards or narrow rivers. So, engineers developed another method, the side launch, also known as the transverse launch. This one is, in a word, wild. Instead of facing the water stern first, the ship is built parallel to the shoreline. The slipways are much shorter and steeper. When the time comes to launch, the supports are knocked away, and the entire ship is tipped sideways directly into the water. Imagine a skyscraper falling on its side into a lake. That's the kind of energy we're talking about. The ship drops with a colossal splash, creating a massive wave. It rolls heavily to one side, so far that it looks like it's going to flip over completely. Your heart leaps into your throat watching it. But if the naval architects did their jobs right, the ship's own buoyancy and center of gravity will correct the roll, and it will right itself, bobbing in the water. This method is incredibly efficient for tight spaces and is particularly popular for smaller to medium-sized vessels, especially on the Great Lakes in North America. It's a violent, chaotic, but brilliantly effective way to get a ship afloat. Now, both of those methods sound pretty intense, right? Sliding a giant metal structure on grease or tipping it over sideways, what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot. One of the biggest risks is the ship getting stuck on the slipway. If the lubrication isn't sufficient or the slope isn't quite right, the ship might start to slide and then just stop. This is a nightmare scenario. You have a multi-thousand-ton vessel, halfway in and halfway out of the water, under immense stress. Getting it moving again is a monumental and dangerous task. Another terrifying possibility is capsizing. In a side launch, the roll has to be perfectly calculated. If it rolls too far, it won't recover. It will fill with water and sink right there in the shipyard. In a longitudinal launch, there's a phenomenon called pivoting. This is the point where the stern is lifted by the water, but the bow is still on the slipway. The middle of the ship experiences extreme stress. If the hull isn't strong enough, it could literally break in half. This is why the structural integrity of the ship is tested to its absolute limits during these few critical seconds. Shipbuilders use incredibly detailed computer models to predict every single movement, but reality can always throw a curveball. Because of these risks, the modern era has seen the rise of a third, much safer and more controlled method, the float-out. This is typically done in a dry dock, which is basically a giant basin with a gate that can be sealed off from the sea. The ship is constructed entirely inside this dock. When it's finished, there's no sliding, no dropping, no drama. They simply open the valves and flood the dry dock with water. Slowly and gently, the water level rises. The ship, which was once resting on blocks, begins to float, lifting off its supports gracefully. Once the water level inside the dock matches the level of the sea outside, the massive dock gate is opened, and the ship is gently towed out by tugboats. It's far less spectacular than a slide launch, but it's infinitely safer and allows for the construction of the world's largest vessels like supertankers and massive container ships, which are simply too big and heavy to be launched any other way. The float-out minimizes stress on the hull and removes almost all the risks associated with the dynamic, high-energy launches. It's the triumph of control over chaos. So why do shipyards still use the older, riskier methods? Sometimes, it's about tradition. For centuries, sliding launches were the only way, and some shipyards are built around this principle. Other times, it's a matter of cost and infrastructure. Building a massive dry dock is an enormous investment. For shipyards that specialize in smaller vessels or are located on narrow rivers, a side launch might be the only practical and cost-effective option. Each method has its place, depending on the size of the ship, the geography of the shipyard, and the available budget. The launch is a huge milestone, but it's not the end of the story. After the ship is afloat, it's moved to an outfitting quay. Here, the final construction takes place. The interiors are finished, the navigation and communication systems are installed and calibrated, and all the machinery is thoroughly tested. This is followed by a series of sea trials, where the ship is taken out to open water to test its speed, maneuverability, and performance under real-world conditions. Only after it passes all these rigorous tests is it finally delivered to its owner, ready to begin its service life. From the thunderous roar of a longitudinal launch to the heart-stopping drop of a side launch, and the calm precision of a float-out, getting a ship into the water is a monumental feat of engineering. It's a celebration of human ingenuity, a process filled with history, risk, and incredible spectacle. It's a reminder that even in our modern world of computers and automation, sometimes we still have to rely on gravity, guts, and a little bit of grease to move mountains of steel. So the next time you see a giant ship sailing on the horizon, take a moment to appreciate not just its journey across the ocean, but its very first, most dramatic journey, those few heart-pounding seconds it took to go from a land-bound structure to a magnificent vessel afloat on the sea. Thanks so much for watching. What's the most impressive piece of engineering you've ever seen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos exploring the wonders of science and engineering. See you next time.